My wife just confessed that she had a one-night stand. I'm going crazy. This week has been the worst week of my life. I don't really know where to start. My wife and I have been married for 5 years and have been together for almost 10 years. I'm 30. She is 28. We have 20-month-old twins. My wife and I have always had a solid relationship. We have never had downs, only ups. I own my own business and make a good living. She stays at home with the kids. My wife literally wants for nothing. We have a great sex life. I'm emotionally and physically available to her and the kids much more than the average person, thanks to the freedom of owning my own business. We have a great social life, and we get plenty of date nights and party nights to stay connected as a couple. We love each other very much and are each other's best friends and favorite company. And this is the reason why my wife's one-night stand is so much harder for me to understand and deal with. It all started Saturday when my wife told me she was having a girls' night out with her good friend from work. She used to cut hair, and a couple of her friends. My wife doesn't usually want to have fun without me, but her friend had recently gone through a rough breakup with her jerk ex and was just trying to reconnect with old friends, which is totally understandable. My wife and I have never had trust issues, so I told her to have fun, and I stayed home and watched the kids. She didn't get home till 6 a.m. And honestly, I didn't think twice about it. Anyway, fast forward to Monday night. My wife says she needs to go to the grocery store to get food and diapers. She leaves and comes back 2 minutes later. I can tell something's not right. She starts crying and says she messed up really badly. I didn't know what she meant. I thought she hit someone with the van or wrecked the car or something. Then she told me she had a one-night stand on Saturday night. Not just a one-night stand, but a threesome with some guy and one of her female friends. I was blown away. I didn't even know what to think. I was so unprepared for her to tell me this. All night, I was just confused, not even mad. In a weird way, it kind of turned me on. I've always had fantasies of tag-teaming my wife with a friend. And when we'd have sex, I'd talk dirty to her about that kind of stuff sometimes. But they were just fantasies. I was curious about it more than anything. So I told her to tell me about what happened in detail. That's when everything went crazy. As soon as she started talking, the reality of it started to sink in. My curiosity was quickly replaced with rage and panic. I couldn't believe that the love of my life and the wife of my children could stab me in the back like this. She told me it was an accident. I told her to shut up and get away from me. I went downstairs because I couldn't sleep. I basically cried all night. I had to go to work the next morning, so I proceeded to get really drunk to get the images out of my head and get some sleep. She kept coming down and trying to console me, but it just hurt too much to be around her, so I told her to go away. The next day at work, I couldn't get the images she told me out of my head. I was so messed up. Every second, I was consumed by the mind movies of her getting railed by some guy in a slutty threesome. I was pissed that she had sex with another guy, but I was even more upset that she saved the sexual experience of a threesome with some bar rat than her husband. It made me feel like an emasculated bitch, and I'm not. I got on Facebook and started to research this guy and this other girl. It turns out she is married to his friend, and she has 3 kids. Part of me wants to tell her husband, but I can't bring myself to do it to the poor bastard. After everything I've gone through, I just can't bring that on him, and I don't want to be involved in breaking up their home. I love kids too much, and I don't ever want to do anything that could hurt a child. It would just be too much weight on my soul. After the next day of obsessing over this guy, I decided to confront him. I found his address online, left work early, and staked out his house till he came home. I drank a couple of beers to take the edge off, then waited. When he pulled up, I got out of my truck and walked up to him. He knew something was wrong and asked if he could help me. I took off my sunglasses and asked if he knew who I was. I think he did, but he said no. I told him I was so-and-so, and he screwed my wife. He immediately went into denial mode and was acting as if he had no idea she was married and all that crap. I then said, "Does your friend know you're screwing his wife too?" He said no, and I asked him how he would like it if his friend found out. I then punched him in the face to force an altercation. He just apologized profusely and told me he got my point. I then threatened to tell his friend about the one-night stand and left. This confrontation made me feel so much better at first. My wife is super hot, and in my mind, I just imagine this guy grinning from ear to ear. showing all of his friends her Facebook picture, followed by I had a threesome with her, because what guy wouldn't? My goal was to sour his experience. Every time he thinks about that moment, I want him to remember the fear he had when I walked into his driveway. To me, it felt like a small victory in balancing out the injustice that had been done. I went home afterwards and felt better. I told my wife I still love her, and I feel like I can forgive her. Anyway, I was starting to get horny. We went upstairs after we put the kids to sleep. Like an idiot, while we were getting intimate, I had her tell me about what happened in detail to her on Saturday. She did, and we both got turned on and had pretty hot sex. I know I'm weird. The second I came, the fantasy became a reality again, and I was right back to feeling crazy about the whole situation. I started to realize that even though that guy and girl might be scumbags, they're not married to me, and they don't owe me anything. The real fault in this whole situation falls completely on my wife for betraying me. I tried lying in bed and going to sleep next to her, and out of nowhere, anger just blew up inside of me. I told her that if we didn't have kids, I would dump her ass. I told her she is a shit person for doing this to the kids as well as me. I told her that if you can do something like this to me when the chips are up, I can't imagine how you might be if we get into hard times. She didn't say anything. She lets me vent about her because she knows she deserves it. Sometimes I mean the bad I say to her, but most of the time I don't. I just can't control how I feel the next minute. I told her that if she gave a shit about this marriage, she could make the effort to fix it herself. I grabbed my keys, got dressed, and went to a hotel. I finally got my first night of real sleep. Just being out of that environment helped a lot. We think our son could potentially have autism, so the next morning we had a meeting at our house with a therapist to do an evaluation. The therapist said he doesn't have autism, but he does have some speech development issues they can work out, which is a huge relief. After the meeting was over, my wife said she had set up an appointment with an infidelity specialist. The bottom line is that I know my wife loves me and I love my family, so I want to work on it, but I'm just so hurt, embarrassed, and angry. I wanted to cheat on my wife and rub it in her face, but after reading forums, people say that it doesn't make you feel any better. And the truth is, I've never wanted to cheat on my wife. OP answers some questions that give us more details. Answer 1. The first night she told me about the threesome, she told me everything I wanted to know, but she kept it kind of vague in order to protect my feelings. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened until I just wore it into the ground, and I lost interest. The next day, when she told me more details about it, the whole cycle started over again until I thought about it. I think no matter how bad it hurts, you should just get every single detail so you can process it all at once and get it over with. If I found out some insignificant detail a month down the road, like they did 69 or something, that would just run through my head for days and bring all my anger back. But honestly, this is all so fresh to me. Answer 2. When my wife was out with her friends, one of them had a Xanax, and she asked her if she could have one. Then she was drinking on top of that. The girl told her that they were going to this guy's house and that people were going to meet them up there. No one ended up showing up, and the girl started making out with my wife and really feeling her up, and of course the guy just took advantage of the opportunity. I feel like it's kind of a borderline sexual assault situation. I think she asked for the Xanax, and she hung around a girl who was being way too sexual. But the bottom line is that she decided to put herself in that situation. The difference between us is that I don't get myself into those situations. It's like 2 weeks ago we went to her 10-year reunion, and when I was up there, this married girl, whose husband wasn't there, that I barely remember from high school came up to me and told me I was her first crush and that I was the first guy she had ever danced with. She was giving me the eyes all night, and my response was something like, "That's cool. So, you and my wife went to school together?" Answer 3. I don't see anything wrong with letting someone you trust utterly get dolled up with her friends and have a girls' night out on the town. I've never been jealous of my wife. She just never worried me. I think it would be weird for me to be the fun police and tell her, "You look way too hot to go to Buffalo Wild Wings." I just didn't have cheating on my mind, and I'm pretty sure she didn't either. As far as her excuse, she's not stupid enough to try to make one. She knows she screw up and isn't trying to make excuses. She was drunk. The girl was making her feel good, and it was just hard to resist the temptation. But like I said, that's the difference between my wife and me. I would never put myself in a sexual situation that could actually lead to that point. Answer 4. I truly believe in my gut that this is the only time my wife has ever done something even remotely close to this. I can tell she feels horrible. Since she told me, she has been following me around like a ghost, not saying a word, then just breaking down and crying, telling me she is sorry and she has no excuse. She has probably lost 5 pounds because she has been sick from the stress of it. Also tonight, I told her I wanted her to tell her parents. To my surprise, she told me she wanted to. Answer 5. Everyone is telling me to tell the husband, and I do understand the reasoning. I say I don't want to tell because I don't want to break up his family, but there is more to it than that. For one thing, I don't know this guy from Adam. For all I know, he is aware of this situation. My fear is that by telling this guy, his wife might have nothing to lose and put my relationship on blast on social media. What do you guys think? Am I off the mark? Part of me wants to tell her husband to screw her and her friend. I would relish the thought of flipping their lives upside down, but I would hate for them to try and drag my name through the mud on their way down. Even though I shouldn't have to cover for my wife's decision to cheat, I don't want to be a label, the guy who married a slut. And I especially don't want my children to grow up knowing about this. Update, 4 days after the first post. Well, it's been about 4 days since I posted anything. So basically, I was having a really hard time the first week. I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone, and it was just really hard to bottle it up. I got tired of being pissed off at home, so on Saturday I called my brother and some of my single friends that lived downtown and went out to party. It helped a lot. I had a really fun time, and it kept my mind busy to the point where I wasn't thinking about it too much. My only problem was that I just didn't want to stop and come back to reality. I had my friend get me a bunch of blow so we could just keep it going. I basically just went on a bender all weekend and didn't sleep. It was good at first, but by the time Sunday afternoon came around, I talked to my wife and everything just kind of spiraled out of control from there. I told my brother and my friend what happened. I was a mess. They were trying to console me, but I was in way too much pain. I went back to my brother's house and I couldn't stop sobbing. He decided it was time for me to tell my parents. So, we went to their house and told them everything. I could barely get it out. I was so upset, but it felt so good. This week has been my own personal hell, and telling everyone was just such a huge weight lifted off of me. My parents and brother love my wife, and they feel like she just messed up. They told me ultimately if we ended up getting a divorce, they would completely support whatever decision I made. But their opinion is that they don't feel like she is a bad person and just got super screwed up and made a really bad decision. Anyway, since I talked to my parents, I have been feeling so much better. If I start getting pissed or upset, I can go talk to someone who loves me. Monday night rolled around, and we went to see a counselor. I don't think I will be going back. She isn't trying to put this on me or give my wife an excuse. It's not like that. I feel like her ultimate goal is to be a place where my wife and I can facilitate an open and healthy conversation with each other to process these events. The thing is, though, I feel like my wife has been open and honest about this situation from the start. I know everyone has their own opinion about what kind of person my wife is, but I don't care. At the end of the day, I have always loved my wife and family, and I don't have a doubt in my heart that she loves me just as much, if not more, than she ever has. Even though it's really hard for me, I have just come to terms with the fact that she made a mistake, and it's not going to cancel everything we've had. If I didn't have kids, could or would I divorce her? Maybe, but I think it would be out of pride more than anything. I love my kids, and I still love my wife. I know she is truly remorseful for the hurt she is putting me through. So, my decision is to move forward and get this chapter behind us. Also, I told the other woman's husband. This guy was so hard to track down. He was on Facebook, but never got on. I tried using his friends to get his phone number, and they just ignored my messages. I finally figured out where he worked and called him today. I told him I had some serious news to tell him. I told him to take a break from work and call me when he could. He called me 20 minutes later. I asked him if he knew who I was or why I was calling. He had no idea. I told him what was going on. He didn't ask me any questions. He abruptly told me thanks for telling him, and he tried to hang up. I told him to hold up a second and tell me, in all honesty, if he saw this coming or if his relationship was on the rocks. He said no. I told him that he would probably be feeling a lot of things this week, and if he wanted to call me or go out and get a beer, I would be open to it. He just said okay and got off the phone. It was kind of weird. He didn't ask questions. He just seemed like he wanted the conversation to be over as soon as it started. Hope he didn't make any more updates. In the end, he decided to forgive his wife and give her a new opportunity, and he told the husband of the other women about that particular night. Last comments. Comment: good job informing the guy. He had a right to know. The reason for his abruptness could be many things. Maybe he's used to it with his wife. Maybe he was so pissed that he had to collect his thoughts and go confront them. You're reaching out to him, and even offering to hang out to help him was a really cool thing to do. Comment: the guy wanted to get off the phone and end it because the odds are he probably already knew, and he and his wife have some kind of open/poly agreement. So, he was just like, oh, one of these prudes. He is probably going to scold his wife to be sure that everyone is on board so they don't call his work.